The scent of fresh herbs used to be a luxury, something I'd only get from the market. The problem was fresh basil or rosemary often wilted before I could use it all. Then, one day, I saw a simple yet brilliant idea, a vertical herb garden made from upcycled plastic bottles. I started collecting 1.5-liter water bottles, cutting them in half and camouflaging them with matte white paint for a clean, uniform look. At the bottom, I poked small drainage holes. I mounted all the bottles vertically on an old wooden board, using wire and screws to ensure they were sturdy. Once ready, I filled each bottle with a mix of loose soil and compost, then planted basil, mint, rosemary, thyme, and oregano, my favorite cooking herbs. I added small wooden labels to each bottle, not just identify them, but to add an aesthetic touch. Standing in the kitchen, I could pluck fresh leaves with just a reach. The herbal aroma spread, making cooking more enjoyable. No more wasted herbs. And most importantly, I saved a lot of space with this vertical design. This project taught me that sometimes you don't need a large garden to have something fresh. Even a kitchen wall can become a mini garden if you're willing to make use of it. And it all started with old plastic bottles that would have otherwise ended up in the trash. My backyard used to be dark and quiet at night. Only the sound of crickets accompanied the stillness, without a single glimmer of light. I wanted to add a touch of illumination, but without increasing my electricity bill. That's when I discovered a simple idea: solar-powered garden lanterns made from old plastic bottles. I collected clear plastic bottles, washed them thoroughly, and then spray painted the outside with frosted white paint. This effect made the light soft and even in the bottle caps. I installed mini solar lights typically used for fences or garden paths. During the day, these lights charged from the sun. As night fell, a warm glow began to emanate from inside the bottles, like tiny lanterns guarding the garden. I placed them along the pathway and hung the rest from tree branches. The result completely transformed the atmosphere. The previously dark garden was now an inviting outdoor space, ideal for relaxing or chatting with friends in the evening. What I liked most, it was almost completely free. The plastic bottles were salvaged, the mini solar lights were affordable, and the electricity, 100% from the sun. This project proved that eco-friendly technology can go hand in hand with creativity. And now, my nights are always accompanied by a soft glow born from simple items. My small backyard pond used to be home to only a few ornamental fish and water plants. Beautiful, but it felt a bit lifeless. I wanted to add a different touch of green, not just along the edges, but also in the middle of the water surface. This is where the idea of floating hydroponic pond planters made from old plastic bottles emerged. I used 1.5-liter plastic bottles, cutting them in half. I inverted the top part with the neck, like a funnel, and filled it with hydroponic growing medium and seedlings of lettuce and water spinach. The bottom part of the bottle became the float, keeping it stable on the water. To ensure the bottles looked neat, I painted them with bright, water-resistant colors. Once all the planters were ready, I placed them on the pond surface. The afternoon breeze made them move gently, as if a small garden was dancing on the water. Every week, I saw the leaves growing luxuriantly, their roots dangling into nutrient-rich water. Besides adding aesthetic appeal, these plants also help maintain the clarity of the pond water. This project made me realize that beauty and function can go hand in hand. From useless discarded plastic bottles, a floating garden was born, bringing color, life, and benefits to the small ecosystem in my backyard. My apartment balcony isn't big, but I wanted to fill it with fresh plants. The problem was I often forgot to water them, especially when I was busy with work. Until one day, I found a brilliant idea: self-watering hanging planters made from old plastic bottles. I cut the plastic bottles in half. The top part, with the bottle neck, I filled with growing media and flower and herb seedlings. The bottom part became the water reservoir. I threaded a cotton wick through the bottleneck until it reached the water below. Water slowly moved through the wick, providing consistent moisture to the soil above. This way, the plants got the water they needed without worrying about over or underwatering. I painted the bottles in soft pastel colors, light blue, pale yellow, and mint green, to match the balcony's ambience. I neatly tied these planters to the balcony railing, forming a beautiful row of mini gardens. A week later, my basil and lavender began to flourish. Even on days when I forgot to water, they remained fresh. My small balcony is now not just a place for an afternoon sit, but also a personal garden that requires almost no maintenance. This project taught me that smart solutions sometimes arise from the simplest needs. And with a little creativity, old plastic bottles can become a savior for plants and their owners. On quiet mornings, I often heard birds chirping from the trees around my house. However, they rarely came close. I wanted to invite them, feed them, and perhaps make the yard feel more alive. From discarded plastic bottles, the idea of a bird feeder with a rain shield was born. I chose clear, medium-sized plastic bottles, cutting two sides to create entry holes. At the bottom, I added a small tray so the seeds wouldn't fall out. Then, I added a cover on top, a transparent plastic plate that I attached with wire to keep the seeds dry when it rained. After filling it with a mix of sunflower seeds, millet, and cracked corn, I hung it from a mango tree branch near my kitchen window. From there, I could observe the activity of my feathered guests every morning. It didn't take long for the birds to start arriving. Some perched briefly. Others dared to enter further. The sound of fluttering wings and joyful chirping now became the soundtrack to my mornings. This simple project wasn't just about feeding birds. It was about building a small connection with nature. A plastic bottle that was once trash now became a bridge of friendship between humans and the wildlife in my backyard. There was one side of my kitchen wall that always felt empty, like a blank page in a book. I wanted to fill it, but not with paintings or photos. I wanted something alive, something I could watch grow every day. From discarded plastic bottles, the idea of wall herb frames was born. I cut the plastic bottles in half, then cleaned and painted them matte white. Each bottle piece was placed inside a simple wooden frame, screwed to a board at the back. The result looked like mini topless glass boxes, ready to be filled with green life. I planted basil, rosemary, and mint in them. Their aroma immediately filled the kitchen, especially when exposed to the morning sunlight streaming through the window. Watering them was easy. Just pour a little water, and I could pluck the leaves directly while cooking. Now, the once empty wall has transformed into a vertical mini garden that also serves as a natural decoration. Every guest who comes over always asks where I bought them, and I always smile as I say, from used bottles I was about to throw away. This project reminded me that a beautiful home doesn't always come from new or expensive items. Sometimes, it comes from simple things given a new purpose and a little touch of our hands. I always wanted to start a small vegetable garden, but unpredictable weather often caused seedlings to die before they were ready to be transplanted into the ground. The solution came from a simple idea: portable seed starter kits made from used plastic bottles. I cut plastic bottles into two parts. I filled the bottom half with a mix of soil and compost, then planted vegetable seeds, tomatoes, chilies, and lettuce. The top part of the bottle was reattached as a transparent cover, creating a mini greenhouse effect that maintained consistent humidity and temperature. Each bottle was labeled with an ice cream stick, noting the planting date and type of seed. Their small size made them easy to move, so I could place them on the windowsill when they needed light, or move them to the patio for fresh air. Within days, green shoots began to emerge, like small messages from nature that they were ready to grow. Once strong enough, these seedlings could simply be transferred to larger pots or an outdoor garden. This project not only saved plastic bottles from the landfill, but also provided immense satisfaction in seeing new life grow from my own hands. And the best part? I could start gardening anytime, anywhere, even in unpredictable seasons. Some plant seedlings are very fragile in their early life. A bit of strong wind, heavy rain, or cold weather can make them wilt before they can grow. That's what made me try making mini greenhouse domes from used plastic bottles. I took clear 1.5-liter plastic bottles, cut off the bottom part, and removed the labels to make them look clean. The top part of these bottles was then used as a protective cover, placed over small pots containing tomato and pepper seedlings. The effect was amazing. The water vapor that formed inside the dome kept the soil moisture stable, while sunlight could still enter without drying out the soil too quickly. I could see dew in the morning, a sign that the small ecosystem beneath was working perfectly. Besides protecting from the weather, these domes also prevented insects from eating the young leaves. I only needed to open the bottle cap occasionally to provide ventilation and ensure the plants didn't get too hot. From used bottles that were originally just trash, many protectors were created that helped the tiny seedlings survive until they were strong enough to be transplanted. Now, every time I see those small domes lined up on a windowsill, I feel like I have a row of private greenhouses in my own home. I used to spend more time looking for my gardening tools than using them. Small hoes, pruning shears, gloves, all scattered in different corners, until I finally made a garden tool organizer from old plastic bottles. I chose large plastic bottles, cutting off the front to create an open pocket, then sanding the edges for safety. These bottles were then mounted on a wooden board with screws, forming a vertical row of storage pockets on the garden shed wall. I labeled each bottle according to its contents: shears, seeds, gloves, fertilizer. Now, all my tools have their own home. When I start work in the garden, I just need to grab what I need from the wall and put it back when I'm done. Besides being functional, this organizer also added a touch of color to the garden shed. I painted the bottles green, yellow, and blue to make them look cheerful. What makes me proud is that all of this was made from items I almost threw away. Now, every time I see my neat shed wall, I smile. Not just because my tools are organized, but because I know I gave plastic bottles a second life and made my life as a home gardener easier. During summer, the plants in my garden often wilted before I could water them all. With limited time, I knew I needed a watering system that could work on its own. That's where the idea of making vertical drip irrigation towers from used plastic bottles came from. I collected several large mineral water bottles, cut off their bottoms, and made small holes in their caps. The first bottle was placed at the very top. Then the subsequent bottles were stacked vertically below it at certain intervals. Each bottle served as a reservoir that slowly dripped water onto the pots or ground below. I tied these bottle towers to bamboo poles for stability, then filled them with water mixed with liquid organic fertilizer. Drop by drop, the water flowed, providing even moisture to all the plants along its path. Within a few days, the results were clear. Leaves that had previously wilted began to perk up again. Flowers bloomed, and I no longer rushed to water every morning. This system could even last several days without needing a refill, perfect for when I traveled. From unused plastic bottles, a simple yet effective solution was created that saved time, water, and effort. Now, my garden is not only fertile, but also more efficient, thanks to consistent small drips day and night. I always enjoyed seeing butterflies fly in the garden, but they rarely stayed long. I wanted to create a place that not only invited them, but also provided them with safe, sweet drinks. The idea came to me when I saw used plastic bottles in the recycling bin. I could turn them into a butterfly watering station. I cut the plastic bottles into flower petal shapes, then painted them with bright colors like orange, yellow, and pink. In the center, I placed a small container filled with diluted sugar water, then filled the surrounding area with pebbles and fresh flowers to give the butterflies a place to perch. I placed the station in a sunny corner of the garden that received morning sunlight. It took a day, but eventually I saw the first butterfly land and drink from it. From then on, more and more came, their wings shimmering as they caught the light. Not only did this beautify the garden, but it also gave me a sense of peace. There's a certain satisfaction in seeing those fragile little creatures feel safe and at home. All of it started from used plastic bottles that were almost worthless. Now, the garden feels more alive. The sounds of bees, birds, and fluttering butterfly wings combine to form a beautiful natural symphony. And I know that a little creativity can bring a lot of life to my backyard. I've always been fascinated by Japanese kokedama, plants growing in moss balls, hanging like natural decorations. But making them from scratch can be quite intricate. That's why I tried a simpler version, using old plastic bottles as the frame. I cut plastic bottles in half, making a few small holes at the bottom for drainage. Then, I filled them with a mix of soil and organic fertilizer. After planting trailing houseplants like pothoes, I wrapped the outside of the bottle with wet moss, securing it with twine. The result resembled an authentic kokedama ball, but it was sturdier due to the bottle support inside. I hung several on the patio, and a few more in the living room corner near the window. When the wind blew gently, the green balls swayed softly, reflecting the morning sunlight. Not only beautiful, but this project was also eco-friendly. Plastic bottles that would have been trash are now living works of art that bring tranquility. And every time I sit beneath them, I feel like I'm in my own private Zen garden. From this experiment, I learned that traditional beauty can be combined with modern creativity, even with materials as simple as used plastic bottles. My small garden was always green, but I felt something was missing: movement. I wanted something lively that danced with the wind. When I saw a pile of used plastic bottles in the corner, the idea came to me: wind-powered garden mobiles. I started by washing clear plastic bottles, then cutting them into elongated spiral shapes. After that, I painted them with bright colors, red, yellow, blue, to create a contrast with the green foliage. I added a hole at the top of each spiral to tie a nylon thread. I hung some spirals from tree branches, others from bamboo poles I staked in the garden corner. When the wind blew, the pieces began to spin gently, reflecting the sunlight and creating a dance of colors in the air. The soft rustling sound of the moving plastic created a relaxing atmosphere, like wind chimes without the ringing. Besides beautifying the garden, these mobiles also helped deter some pests that were reluctant to approach due to glint and movement. From this simple project, I learned that beauty doesn't always have to be static. A little movement can bring new energy to the same space. And most satisfyingly, all of it originated from plastic bottles that once just sat in a trash pile. Every day, my kitchen produces vegetable scraps, fruit peels, and dry leaves from the yard. It felt like a waste for all of it to end up in the trash. I wanted to turn it into natural fertilizer, but space in the yard was limited. That's when the idea of making stackable compost bins from used plastic bottles was born. I used gallon-sized plastic bottles, cutting off the top part and making small holes on the sides for air circulation. These bottles were then stacked vertically, each bottle becoming a layer where the compost would work. The bottom was left open so that compost liquid could flow to the layers below. Every time I had kitchen scraps, I chopped them finely and put them into the top bottle, adding a little soil and dry leaves to maintain balance. In a few weeks, the bottom layer had turned into dark, earthy-smelling compost, black gold, ready to feed the plants in my garden. This tiered system was not only space efficient, but also made the harvesting process easier. I just needed to open the bottom layer to take out the mature compost without disturbing the top parts that were still processing. Seeing used plastic bottles transform into natural recycling tools made me feel more connected to my environment. What was once waste is now a source of new life for the garden, and all of it can be done even in the smallest of yards. Fertilizing plants often felt like a challenge for me, especially having to dissolve fertilizer and water each plant individually. I wanted a more practical method, something that could provide nutrients slowly without overwhelming me. That's where the idea of a drip fertilizer dispenser from used plastic bottles was born. I took a medium-sized plastic bottle, cleaned it, then made a small hole in its cap. This hole became the path for the liquid fertilizer to slowly drip out. I filled the bottle with a mixture of water and liquid organic fertilizer, then hung it upside down near the plant, with the cap positioned directly above the pot soil. Drop by drop, the fertilizer fell directly to the roots, providing a consistent nutrient supply. I no longer worried about my plants being thirsty or lacking fertilizer when I was busy. Even when I traveled, this dispenser kept working nonstop. In a few weeks, the results were clear: greener leaves, more flowers, and faster growth, all with minimal effort and virtually no cost. From a plastic bottle that was once just trash, a simple tool emerged that gave life. This project proved that creativity can turn problems into effective and eco-friendly solutions. Every time it rained, I felt it was a shame to see the water just flow into the drains. Yet, rainwater could be a valuable resource for watering plants. From used plastic bottles, I made simple, eco-friendly rainwater collectors. I chose gallon-sized plastic bottles, cutting off the top part to make the container's mouth wider. Then, I added a funnel made from thinner discarded plastic, covering it with a fine mesh to filter out leaves or debris. I placed these collectors in various corners of the garden, directly under gutters or in open areas. When it rained heavily, the bottles slowly filled up. The water was clear, ready to be used to water the vegetable garden and flowers in the yard. This way, I not only saved on using tap water, but also utilized a free natural resource. Moreover, I felt more connected to the natural cycle, waiting for the rain, collecting the water, then giving it back to the earth. All of this started from plastic bottles that would have otherwise ended up in the trash. Now, there are containers that capture gold from the sky, bringing life to the garden, and teaching that sustainability can begin with small steps. I always enjoyed keeping fish, but I wanted to add a new touch to the small pond in my yard. I envisioned a small green garden floating on top, providing shade for the fish and simultaneously beautifying the water surface. That's where the idea of floating fish tank planters, made from used plastic bottles, emerged. I cut a large plastic bottle into 2 parts. I filled the bottom part with hydroponic growing media and green vegetable seedlings like water spinach and lettuce. I made small cuts on the sides of the bottle for air circulation, then attached thin pieces of styrofoam to the outside so the pot could float stably. When placed on the pond surface, these pots floated gently with the movement of the water. Their roots dangled below, absorbing nutrients from the organic-rich pond water. The fish seemed happy sheltering under the lush roots, while the fresh leaves above created a pleasing sight. In a few weeks, the plants thrived without needing additional fertilizer, as they received a natural supply from fish waste. This project made me realize that small ecosystems can be mutually beneficial. Fish feed the plants, and plants provide oxygen and shade for fish. It all started from a used plastic bottle that would have otherwise become trash. Now, it's part of a beautiful and beneficial floating garden. My cat often got thirsty when I came home late. The water in his bowl would quickly run out or get dirty. I wanted to create a system that could keep water available even when I wasn't home. That's where the idea of a pet drinking fountain from used plastic bottles was born. I took a large plastic bottle, cleaned it, then made a base from an old bowl that fit the bottle's mouth perfectly. When the bottle was filled and placed upside down on the bowl, water would slowly dispense as needed, a simple gravity system that ensured the bowl was always full. To make it more appealing, I painted the bottle with cute animal-themed designs and ensured the edges were smooth for my cat's safety. The advantage was that the remaining water in the bottle stayed clean and protected from dust. Since using this device, I no longer worried about my cat being thirsty. He could drink anytime, and I only needed to refill it every few days. A plastic bottle that was once destined for the trash now became a small savior in my home. This project proved that care can be realized from simple things. Providing comfort to pets doesn't always require large costs, just a little creativity and sincere intent. My home garden was always green, but I wanted to give a unique artistic touch, something that made it different from other gardens. When I saw a pile of used plastic bottles in the corner of the shed, I got an idea. Transform them into colorful garden sculptures. I started by washing the bottles, then cutting them into various shapes: flower petals, butterfly wings, even peacock tails. These pieces were then colored with weather-resistant acrylic paint, choosing a bright palette that contrasted with the green of the plants. With strong glue and wire, I assembled the pieces into sturdy mini sculptures. There was a giant flower standing in the garden corner, large butterflies seemingly flying above the bushes, and colorful birds perched on the fence. When the afternoon sun shone on the garden, the light passed through the colored plastic and created a beautiful shimmer. The once ordinary garden had now become a living art gallery, attracting the attention of every guest. From this project, I learned that art doesn't always need expensive materials. With a little imagination, items that were once trash can become proud works. And every time I walk among these sculptures, I feel like this garden truly tells a story about creativity, sustainability, and simple joy. Nights in my backyard used to be dark, making it difficult to see the pathway. I wanted to create beautiful lighting without electricity, something eco-friendly and unique. That's where the idea of making night glow path markers from used plastic bottles came to me. I collected several small plastic bottles, washed them, then filled their insides with blue-green glow-in-the-dark paint. Once dry, I capped the bottles and staked them along the garden path using thin bamboo sticks as supports. During the day, the bottles looked like ordinary garden decorations. But when night fell, a soft glow began to emerge, guiding me along the path like tiny stars on the ground. It wasn't too bright, but enough to provide direction and create a magical atmosphere. Because it utilized light stored from sunlight, these lights used absolutely no electricity. Maintenance was minimal, just needed to ensure the bottles stayed clean, and occasionally refilled the phosphorescent paint if the colors started to fade. This project transformed the experience of walking the garden at night. Now, every step feels special, as if I'm walking amongst starlight. And even more gratifying, all of this originated from plastic bottles that were once just trash, now transformed into beautiful and eco-friendly path illuminators.